and welcome to the second time filming this review, as yes, the thumbnail is probably not matching what you're seeing depending on whether or not my assistant was willing to retake thumbnail pictures. But we finally finished the Remembrance of Earth's Past trilogy with Cixin by Cixin. This one did take a bit longer than expected to finish, and the first time I filmed this review, outside of the spoiler section, the energy was real low and bad and robotish, and nobody wants to watch that. I'm Morgan. I do hope you enjoyed this review this time. I do have my notes. I rewrote things and I remembered something I forgot to say. And also it made something else click in my brain and I had to go look it up. So we're gonna get into that. Now, how to do this without major spoilers, as this is the first book, third book in the trilogy, so everything technically we're saying is kind of a spoiler for the books that came before it. So you should really check out the first book's review first. There will be a dedicated spoiler section, which will probably be the largest part of the video. The book is broken down into 8 distinct eras, which you actually get a list at the beginning of the book and says like years and everything. So based off of that, the book actually starts in like the 2010-ish era, which I thought it would have been a little sooner based off book 1. That seemed like early 2000s. Not even a definitive time there. But that is called the Common Era now, where it starts in that. And then we go into the Crisis Era. And the Crisis Era is where this book starts. And then it intersects with what was happening in book 2, as we learned hibernation technology is a thing in this series. And from the end of book 2, that is called the Deterrence Era. That takes about 62 years, so 200 plus years of the Crisis Era, 62 years of the Deterrence Era. Then we get 2 years in the Post-Deterrence Era. And that's the last one I'm going to tell you about, because all the other names are kind of descriptive about what is happening to the story. And that would be a spoiler, but you do get that. So if you actually check that out before reading the book, that things might be a little spoiled or confusing at times before you get there. If you've already looked at it and you're like, well, why is it? I know this is coming, but why is it coming? The plot itself of this book is after our idyllic seeming time period that we left off at the second book. There is this ancient program that has come to light again. So that ancient would be, the early on in the Crisis Era. One of the programs that took place beside the Wallfacer program is coming back into light and possibly ruining this peace that humanity and Tri-Solaris had. I say possibly because, things. And we will have our character as we follow forward from in the Crisis Era, how this project got started, through to our current Deterrence Era, what's going on, what's happening now with that, and forward into the future of how it impacts humanity and our life in the solar system and our survival and Tri-Solarans. So it's all from that. I did not know what to really expect after book 2. I was like, this seems like a pretty solid ending. We seem good. I mean, yes, the Tri-Solaran fleet is still, 200 years away, per se, but we seem copacetic. Everything seems okay, so why are we getting book 3? And okay, this program from back then when we thought we were enemies, that's coming back around, so maybe they'll be mad at us again. Things. But I couldn't understand why we're getting 700 pages. And then slowly, I was like, oh, yeah, that makes sense. In book 2, we had the multi-POV setup where many people were main characters, and then we had other side characters that we saw maybe from a chapter or 2. This one, though, goes back kind of to book 1's format of having a main character. In book 1, it was per time period. In this one, though, we're following her pretty much the majority. There are a few other characters that we will see from time to time. As our main character is in hibernation, we will get chapters from other people or interludes from a book called A Past Outside of Time, which gives more detail to things in the Crisis Era or aspects that are going on. Those are very interesting chapters. I found myself quite enjoying those. It's like a history book from different perspectives. Are you going to sit in my lap, Sunshine? One character I was surprised to see again was actually Luoji. He's not a main character that we see like through his eyes again, but he is brought up a few times in the story, kind of a key player. The first one that we do actually have as our main character, who seems to be the main character, is going to be Yoon Tae-ming. He is a terminal cancer patient, an engineer that while he's trying to go through chemo, it's not working, and through him though we will be introduced to the main character and how he plays a pivotal role throughout the story and the project that comes around. So you see a first few chapters from Yoon Tae-ming, and then he comes up much kind of later in the story. How to say it without spoilers though is the hardest part. Either way though, he went to university with Cixin, and through this he was somewhat infatuated with her. The memory of her stuck with him throughout, once she went off to graduate school and he went off to a career, and thus leading to pretty much everything that happens. You're then introduced to her though. It takes you back to the crisis year 1 and what she was doing and how she became involved with the PDC, and the project that will come back around in the future was her brainchild. That led to so many things. You're introduced to Thomas Wade through this, who is also kind of a pivotal player. He is the type of person that will push for things to be done no matter who it might hurt, because it's for the greater good type of person, which kind of balances out Cixin, as she is more of a how to help the greatest amount of people, well, how not to hurt people, how to save everyone. Because of her brainchild project though, she does go into the hibernation and will wake up in the deterrence era, and that's kind of her thing. She just keeps going to sleep, and she has this company that will end up creating things that, because of how not to say this, oh my gosh, how not to say spoilers here. She's very smart, but it doesn't ever seem to describe her using her brain outside of the PDC era at the beginning of the crisis, where she thinks of this. She thinks out how to do these things, and she recognizes things in the deterrence era and in the further eras of the future. She recognizes things as what would be beneficial, how, she puts pieces together. She is intelligent, it shows this, but yet it hardly ever actually seems that she uses it in that way either. So as a main character, I was left a bit wanting. I wanted something else maybe to balance out what she was doing, and we didn't get that. I don't know of anything else I can say towards this book outside of the spoilers at this point. I greatly enjoyed my time reading it though, so that way if you are going to leave the video instead of like skipping over the spoilers, I really enjoyed the process of reading it. The end is just not one of those types of endings that works for me, but during the reading process, so much fun. So much fun. Okay, diving into spoilers now. Feel free to skip forward to the end, because I don't think I said my rating earlier. Maybe I did. Blue Space and Gravity, the Space Defense Force ships that we knew went out. Well, actually, Gravity was not one from that original Battle of Darkness. I do believe that was built later, because it had the gravitational wave ship function on it. So it was built later to go chase down Blue Space, because Blue Space did not heed the call to come back to Earth when we were like, hey, it's safe, come back. Blue Space was like, yeah, I don't know if it is, and they were very smart, because the Earth people were crazy and very judgmental. Very judgmental. So pretty much all the scenes on Blue Space and Gravity, because that is where we got to interact with the fourth dimensional bubbles and actually like get some answers there to that. Those were all really cool, and overall knowing where they went out in the universe and how that happened, that was nice. And that was very enjoyable. I wish we could have actually seen more from them versus who we saw from. What I forgot in the first filming of this video that I don't know how I forgot, because it's like such a big thing and so integral to the story, and I gushed about it on the vlog, would be Yoon Tae-ming's fairy tales. How he constructed all of these hundreds and hundreds of fairy tales on the off chance that he would be able to relay these back to Earth, to be able to provide us the information that we needed. Like, how does he do this? It was just incredible forethought. And I mean, I guess he knew he was espionage-y. The fact that they picked his brain at all, which we do know that some of the Trisolarian fleet, from the brushstrokes we saw in the second book, that we do know some of them veered off. How they would have been able to find the brain, though, in all of space, it's still, I don't know. Maybe a droplet actually followed the probe when it left. The droplet was actually following it the whole time. It never explained that. The book did not explain that at all. It just said, and all the improbabilities and everything. That's pretty much what it said. An improbability, coincidence, and things. And I'm like, really? After how detailed you get with some stuff, you're going to be like, improbabilities, blah, 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 blah. Not really explain it. And then they cloned him a body. And I know he went into it thinking he'd be tortured and everything. He seems to have a decent-ish relationship with the Trisolarians, though. They give him this place to farm and land. I know that the Remembrance of Earth, whatever the fourth book is that was written not by him, that he kind of gave the green light, but then he kind of regrets it, and most people don't consider it good fan fiction. It goes into his story, and I think that even says like he was tortured by them. But then why would they torture him, and why would they come to, like, I don't understand. I don't think that they would have actually done that. Even, I don't know, because they had considered us bugs. They always wanted to betray us, but why give him the land? Why give him the food and the body? And then later on, even giving him access to the mini universe and the ability to go to her and provide her own mini universe. Very, very odd. But his forethought on the fairy tales and telling her the fairy tales, and the fact that he still cares for her, and that they can never actually see each other again, that sucked so bad. Like, why? Why would you do this, book? I get that it's not supposed to, like, have romance, but whatever. Why keep bringing them up and together, and then to do that? One of the things that I realized as I'm writing out my notes again today, is like making sure I didn't forget things, and I had to go back and double check. The end of Dark Forest has now been retconned. As I had put it in my notes that I didn't like the 5-year time skip of the epilogue for Dark Forest. And then I'm thinking about it and what we learned about Luoji in this book and how he's been the sword holder. And I went and specifically checked 18 hours. He was not the sword holder for 18 hours. Yet 5 years after, in book 2, it said 5 years later, he had passed off that responsibility to the UN. Well, that's a difference than 18 hours. 5 years later, he had his wife and his kid, and they were all happy. And yet now, it's been 62 years, and at an undefined point, she'd left him and taken their daughter, and they says they were never, heard about again. There's just a footnote at that point. That's so rude. He was motivated to free them in the second book. Like, all of his motivations was to get them back. And I get that being in that stressful sort of position of the sword holder, that would put a very stressed thing. But for him to never get to know what happened to them again, and for us to never get to know, what? After making them such an integral, motivating part of this story, or book 2 story, that's as bad as, Yun Timing and Cixin, and that motivation to, like, save him, to find him, to save her, or save humanity, and that never getting to play out right either. So irritating. And it retconned itself by saying that he was only not the sword holder for 18 hours. And then he went to live alone in a bunker, and the Trisolarians respected him because of his willingness, because of his determination and his grit, that he would kill us both off versus let them take over. And then the sword holder passed to Cixin, and that went horribly. They played chicken with her, and she lost immediately. And the worst part from this is that she didn't seem to actually learn from the experience. As when things came up again later, she kind of made the same call. And it was the bad call. And how Thomas Wade kept his promise, he shouldn't have. So it's just, I couldn't with Cixin. She just continued to be kind of annoying. And the way she was written was just too, I'm very intelligent, but I only go by my gut feeling. I don't think things out. In the game of chicken, sure, there was no time exactly for thinking, but continuously, this is what she did. Continuously. like several times, and the fact that she is the last person in the universe, that is so irritating. And so the end of the book, that's my last spoiler, is I hate open-ending books. It gets on my nerves so bad. I cannot stand the lack of closure. So the way this book ended, it really bothered me. It really bothered me after 700 pages, and then that is where you leave us. I would have been okay if book 2 was the end and we never actually, it never needed to go 200 years into the future when the Trisolarans got there, because we were happy together. Of course, it was all a lie, and they were waiting for a weak person to be the sword holder so that they could, cut off all the gravitational waves, and we can't expose them, and ha ha ha, you're all going to be subjugated now. We like you enough that we're not going to kill you all. That's enough of the spoilers, and just overall, the book was a 4 stars. I felt like it was a 4-star read because it was so fun throughout the reading, even if I hated the ending. But when I went through Call Pile, it actually did end up being a 4 stars too, so I was right on my gut feeling. That was good. I liked the physics of it and the science that we got, and getting to see the time periods through the futures, getting to see the ships again that we'd sent out into space, and how we advanced in odd kind of ways sometimes. And some of our characters, like the fairy tales that came up in it, the stories and how they related and what they meant. It did not like our main character, actually, though. No, I did not like her, and I wish we had other people that we could have seen for more as a main character instead of just as a side in-betweens. That would have been so much better, probably, but she was our main character, the one we had to follow. I did do a spoiler-filled vlog through all of this. Sorry for the bloop bloop. I should have mentioned it earlier in the video, but if you would like to see my first reaction spoilery thoughts, I did do a vlog. I am doing a vlog, still in the editing process of that, but it should be up at the same time as this video, so you could click the link. I hope you enjoyed this, though. I would like to know your thoughts on this series if you've completed it, if you've only read the first one and you were going to complete it. Did you like it, dislike it? How did it end for you? Like, what feelings did you end on? I hope you enjoyed the video, though, and you'll come back for more. And I really hope you're finding something great to be reading today. I'll see you in the next one.